Hi, I'm Maxime, developer of Shadow World. Welcome to the release live stream of the 2.5 update. I'm just gonna go over the new features we've added for this patch. It's gonna be fairly fast, but there's quite a lot of things. First of all, we've added a nice smooth transition of LEDs. And we've changed the mesh used when you're updating your shadow world at over time. So if you're doing an ocean, we've adjusted the topology of the mesh. So as you can see, if I toggle the ocean mesh update over time, it's going to change the topology. You're going to see all the quads are aligned the same way. And if we update over time, we've adjusted, which better suits the requirements of a topology which can change anywhere over time, and we can compute an adjusted topology over time is too expensive. So this new topology is fixed and is better suited to render oceans and interactive surfaces. Okay, so we have the smooth LED transition, and you can adjust the transition widths. Okay, it's very cool. There's a new seed system, which is much more advanced than what it used to be. You used to only be able to add a couple floats variables. Now there's a seed generator. Seed generator allows you to set up any seed you want. It's actually an object. If you go inside the BP folder seed generator, you can see I've created one. You see here, you can create your own. You create a blueprint class. You look for SW seed, and you can create your own seed generator. This seed generator has an overridable function, which is a generate seed. And what you're doing here is outputting a seed. So if you create, for instance, if you promote this to a variable and expose it, which is exactly what I did on this demonstration, I exposed world seed. You can access world seed here from the detail panel, and you can add new kind. You can in the function here, for instance, you can generate render targets. You can do any kind of computation here. It can be fairly advanced. So if you're doing a fast Fourier ocean, you can do all the pre-computation here and output the render target here. Okay, so I don't have anything to add. So the new seed system with an object, it's very powerful. I made it mainly because we might add a fast Fourier ocean later, but it's so usable for terrain. You can, for instance, pre-compute biomes partitioning in the world and some large textures that you could use. Okay, so we've seen the smooth LED transition. There's a new water effect, a new water material, for instance. First of all, we have the water transition. You can see there's a water line that has been added. It's not very practical to showcase, but you get the water line here. A new underwater effect that you can customize. You can change the color, you can change the distance at which you see. 2 meters might be too much, too little. You can change the colors. You can really customize what you want. The water effect we've added an option to spawn assets following the slope of the terrain. So for instance, I'm going to show here, I'm going to add a new spawnable. Here, new spawnable. It's going to be a static mesh. Let's see what I have here. Content, static mesh, this one. Okay. And I want it to spawn aligned to terrain slope. I want it to spawn exclusively on slope, for instance, first of all. So between 30 and I want it to spawn here, for instance. And I want a lot of density. I want to see it at least 15 meters, 50 meters. Okay. Okay, so it's spawning on the slope. All right. But I want it to spawn aligned to the terrain slopes. It's very useful if you want to spawn some specific rocks which are sticking out the mountains, but those rocks have a up direction. They're oriented. You can just orient them in any direction. So let's say it's spawning quite like that. You can see if you want a rock to point towards the interior, you can use the align to terrain slope here. Okay, so just maybe notice I forgot to force a recomputation when you're doing this. Here we go. Okay, so now they're all pointing towards the interior. So if you want to make a rock stick out, a large rock which stick out of the mountains, you can use this this feature to do it. Right. Yes, so in the previous patch we've added a readback system. So if you want to make a bot or any kind of runtime spawning. Okay, so you have your bot here. So it's reading the water and adjusting. But previously I was intending the system to mainly be used on water, but you can use the readback system to sample the ground as well. And if you used it for the ground, it now can take into account the brushes. So the bot is going to move a bit everywhere, but if you follow the spheres, the control points, you're going to see they follow the terrain around even on brushes. I'm going to simulate back. Okay, I'm going to capture the pawn. Okay, so here is my bot. Excellent. See the boat is following the terrain. That's normal, but I want to test it on the brush, so I'm gonna bring the boat. I can test it here. Oh, I duplicated it. No, mistake. Get out of here. Okay. So that's one brush. I'm gonna try it on this one. See, it's following the brush. Okay. Isn't too happy that I move the boat by hand. Okay, so the 8 feedback, the option to spawn following the slope of the terrain. There's also been some new improvements on the spawning performance. So we've quite pushed the limit over what you're capable to spawn using a single hierarchical instance static mesh. Right now the only limitation left of Shallow World regarding spawning asset is that for every variety, for every mesh, we are only using a single hierarchical instance static mesh. So that's the big limitation right now. So if you want to increase the performance, if you want a denser vegetation, you will have to put in place a partition system, which is using several hierarchical instance static mesh over space. So we'll have to partition them and move them around. Right now we're just using a single one. So if you have too many instances inside the same instance mesh, it's gonna generate quite a bit of hitches when you're moving around. That's one of the big limitations right now. Okay, but you can still get around with a lot of vegetation. Like I added some information on the spawnables to be able to see how many instances you have. So right now this is a tree. I have a total of 117 instances of this tree. And you can see I'm still covering a very large area. And it all fits inside a single instance mesh. Okay. One of the new features of the update is the support for virtual shadow map caching. So previously we were rendering the terrain as a dynamic mesh. So if you know, in Unreal Engine you can render the meshes in two ways. If you take a nanite aside of the equation, you can render static mesh. You can render meshes two ways. You have the dynamic pass, which is basically computing and sending a bunch of information to your GPU every frame, and you have the static pass. So the static pass is basically caching the draw command you're sending the GPU. It's also caching the buffer on the GPU, so you don't send things to the GPU every frame. It's much more efficient, and it allows, for instance, the shadow system of Unreal Engine to cache the shadow map. So if you check here, for instance, the virtual shadow map cached pages, you can see it's all green because it's all being cached. It's only been computed once, and you don't have to recompute it. So it's very efficient in terms of shadows, in terms of shadow computation. But not only is it an improvement for the shadow casting, it's an improvement for the rendering of the terrain itself. There's been it was a bit of a challenge because, as you know, it's using geometric clip map right now, and it's basically moving a mesh every frame. So you get to do some low-level editing of the rendering of the mesh in Unreal Engine, but it's extremely efficient. And the ocean is still updating 30 times per second. Yeah, it actually depends. You can update your oceans how many times per second you want to update it. If you want to make it extremely smooth, you can push it to 60. It's going to be extremely smooth right now. Okay, that's about it. Smooth LOD, new ocean, new underwater, waterline, caching system for the rendering of the terrain, and that's about it. Yeah, large performance improvement on vegetation spawning. But now the next step will be to use multiple instance mesh components to really mitigate any itches that might still be here. That's about it.